up, and then where I get to live stream. Those of you guys who are interested in connecting, let me just please ensure you guys head over to Makers Row. Make sure that you guys have an opportunity to see kind of see where things are. There are so many great resources and people that I think are really important to check out kind of as you guys are launching and scaling and thinking about business development. I've had some extremely interesting conversations and brands and businesses who've been jumping on these one-on-ones afterwards. And so if you guys are interested in the one-on-ones, please do take advantage. It's like having me in your brain and then also like other really smart people in your brain to talk about things about business. So really awesome and cool. Okay, so we're going to jump into today's conversation. And if you guys have questions or thoughts or things you guys want to talk about, please feel free to jump in. But more often, guys, this topic is very important. But more often than not, when we're thinking about launching a business, sometimes we forget that it's not just about, what you do right when launching a business, but also there's a lot of things that you should not be doing when launching a brand. And I think sometimes we really focus, I'm going to zoom in on this so you get less curtains. But I think, sometimes what happens is when you've got a brand that you're launching, we're oftentimes being told, what are the things that are so important to keep in mind? And what are the things that we actually need to be doing? But what about the areas in which you possibly are at risk to be doing some serious damage to your business? Important to consider. So when we're looking at what not to do, so one of the very first things that you shouldn't be doing with your business is going into something without a financial plan or a budget. And unfortunately, when it comes to looking at financial planning, oftentimes we will flip our budgets, right? So we'll kind of take a look at things like flipping the budget from things like, what we should be doing from the perspective of like, let's say inventory, right? What we should not be doing is over investing in inventory. What we should be doing is investing in marketing, right? Super duper important thing to consider, right? So not as much resources in your inventory, more resources in marketing. I was just on the phone with someone today who's just launching her brand. And she was like, well, how much money should I spend on my inventory? I've been told that I should be spending X percentage on marketing. What should my numbers look like? And what I always tell people is this really isn't a matter of a science. There is not a formula. These are the things that you do. It's really more so about orchestrating, being the conductor of the orchestra, right? What are all of the different components that you need to be considering? And then how do you orchestrate those components together in a way that actually allows you to maximize the ROI on what you're doing for your business? So let's further unpack things that you shouldn't be doing. Number one, don't pay nothing in wages and expect to get amazing talent. I see that happen way too often, guys, like way too often. As entrepreneurs, you're trying to do things scrappy, but you don't understand what you should be investing in versus what you should not be investing in terms of the over under. And so the worst thing that I've seen is people who are like, yeah, I just want to get an intern to do this. I want to get an intern to do that. Well, guess what? Like your intern is probably not going to do the same kind of work that you're doing or the caliber as, let's say, someone who has 2 to even 3 years of experience, right? Or 5 years of experience. So as we're kind of looking at the different ways in which business can be run and how you're capacity building, please don't make the mistake of saying, I need to hire everyone as cheaply as possible. That is a no-no. In fact, what you want to do is say, like, these are the places in which I think I should be investing my resources versus, and then here's where I'm going to pull back my resources. So again, we're looking at this more from the perspective of the conductor of the orchestra rather than from the perspective of, I'm just going to cut corners across the board. Because trust me, also, like that kind of mentality of being super scrappy, and just cutting all corners, not only are you going to sacrifice work value, so meaning like the quality of what you get just may not be as good, but at the same time, the other issue you're going to get into is that scarcity mentality is also going to breed a certain kind of work culture. And so you really want to make sure that how you're approaching your hiring and capacity building is done through the lens of, okay, I'm going to hire this person for this budget. I know that if they're going to be lower level, I'm actually going to have to invest time and energy into them, right? Because they're going to need to learn and grow, and I'm going to have to train them on how to build their skill set. So again, set aside time. So if you are going to hire junior people, do not just give them the work to do and expect that they know how to do it. There's a reason why they're junior, right? So, and also it's not their business, it's your business. So like this whole idea of everyone needs to be a diehard and, my business has to be the only thing people consider is total bullcrap, right? It's more like, hey, you're a person who seems pretty smart and bright. I have some work that I think I need you to do. How do we achieve the right balance here of what you need to learn, what I need to extract, and then how we're going to exchange resources? And so my favorite thing to do in that particular standpoint is ultimately to be able to have brands. Brands always ask when they're hiring someone, like, what do you want to put on your resume afterwards, right? What do you want to put on your resume when you're done working with me? And that'll give you a really good idea of what they're actually wanting to learn about, right? It'll give you a good idea as to whether or not what they are, what their goals are in alignment with what your goals are. And so I would say, it is extremely important for you to kind of get for you to kind of get a perspective on, what are the right people that I need to be associating with, right? What are the roles? Do I actually have the capacity to train them? So the other big no-no, guys, when launching your brand is hiring someone and you don't know about that thing to know how to manage them. Check it out. You don't have any money. You need to staff up a team, but you don't know how to do these jobs either. So you hire someone who's cheap, but the person who's cheap doesn't have experience. So now you don't have experience, you don't know how to manage them, they don't have experience, and they don't know what they're doing. They produce a result, and you don't know how to tell them how to produce it differently or what they should do in order to make it better, right? So it's kind of like the blind leading the blind in this case, in the sense that like you don't know where you're going and they don't know where they're going, right? And I would say, in terms of like how you want to take that back is to say, okay, well, what should you do in that case? You should actually hire someone who either knows how to hire people, manage them, figure out if it's going to be a right fit, right? So you want to understand what are the nuances between what I actually know how to manage and what I don't, and who knows how to manage that? Do I need consultants, right? So what do you not do? Again, to go back to kind of the theme of today, you don't pretend to know things you don't. You don't hire people who you can't manage. You hire the right people at the right time. I like to think of this as like the visionary, the manager, and the technician. I love that concept. The technician, we all need good technicians. We all need good managers, and we need good visionaries. And chances are, if you're the CEO and leader of your business, you're a great visionary, right? That would be the hope, right? You've got a vision and a trajectory, and you're moving down that path. However, there are going to be times where you hire the technician and you actually have to increase your learning curve or increase your capacity for learning to know how to manage that person who's the technician. And then there's a certain time and place where you actually need to bring on the manager. So sequencing is very important, right? It's very important, and it's going to be very different for everybody. But sequencing, I think, is something that we don't spend enough time looking at. We look so much at, I need to do all these things, but it's not just doing these things. It's the order by which you are doing things that actually really helps you to make better decisions, invest your money wisely, and then be able to have these pivot points where you're like, okay, I went this far on this thing. Now I know if I need to kind of switch my directions, right? So anyway, long story short, don't hire people without fully understanding what you're doing or knowing how to manage them. And if you hate hiring and you hate managing people, consider getting a business partner or hiring someone to kind of be the CEO of your business and manage all that for you, right? Because if you want a business, you're going to need people. And if you think you're going to have a scalable, successful business as a single solo owner operator, you're not going to make that much money. It's like, it's not going to be fun. You're like, why am I doing this? It's like not good. So don't do that. It's a bad idea. You need people, right? We're in people businesses, and that's exciting. But you have to be exciting for that. All right, question from YouTube. For hiring, do we also need to buy insurance and offer healthcare for contractors, new hires at the startup of our brands? When do we introduce these types of things? That's a great question. I love this question. Thank you for the good question. Yes, you do need insurance if you have full-time employees. If you do not have salaried employees who are on your payroll, you do not need to have insurance. But just a couple key things to keep in mind. If you own a business, you should have general liability insurance. If you do not have general liability insurance, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Lots of different places to get general liability insurance. The one that I use, I recommend the most, it's a company called Hiscox. It's HISCOX.com. Really cheap, easy. You can get insurance in like 10 minutes. So I would really suggest you guys check that out. So you need insurance. If you have a business, you need insurance. As far as like workers' compensation, you need workers' compensation if you are hiring someone as staff. You don't need workers' compensation for a contractor, right? So that's really important as well. Like workers' comp, you don't want to get in trouble with that. Big, big no-no. The other thing you want to take into consideration is, when you do decide to go, so the transition point between contractors and full-time have a lot to do with your financial positioning, and then also the opportunities of scale or kind of like marginal returns on a contractor. So contractors are generally like project-based, right? It's like they are contracted to do X amount of labor, a certain number of hours, certain project fee. At a certain point in time, you actually want someone who's going to probably be more invested because there is a training period. And that's something most people don't consider as well. You can't just bring someone on board and expect for them they don't know, right? Like you need to train them. It takes time. People don't walk in knowing exactly what to do. It's not like I can, go into a business and just be like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to run with it. No, like very brilliant, smart people need onboarding, right? So it is super important to take that into consideration as you guys are building out your strategies of hiring, right? You're going to have to onboard everybody. And if it's a contractor or whoever it is, you're paying to onboard them. They're not going to onboard and spend their time learning about your business for free. You're going to have to pay them. So, it's very different when you move from this position of being your own solo business owner to capacity building, because through capacity building, you are literally investing in other people with your time and with your money, right? And that is very important. So basically you're going to see like diminishing returns on contractors when you actually like notice turnover, meaning you need to actually like keep getting more contractors and you're like, shit, like I need to make sure that they stick around. Why are they not sticking around? Is it not consistent? Is it that I need to be focusing on their development and growth? Is it compensation? Contractors you can move through right away, like quickly. I've worked with contractors for like 5+ years, but because I built a culture of community as contractors, right? So like who you are as a leader is very important in terms of people's loyalty to you. It's incredible to see the impact of inspiring loyalty and being honest and vulnerable and bridging community and connection, especially now in this like 100% like digital era where people are just not really going into their offices anymore. So showing up as a leader is super important, right? It inspires loyalty. But at a certain point in time, you're going to be like, crap, these contractors, not cutting it. I might need to bring someone full-time who can handle maybe a couple different areas of business, or maybe just specialize in one and invest in that person. And remember, like, when you hire someone, you're paying into their unemployment taxes. You're paying Social Security. You're paying payroll taxes. You may be paying benefits. Now, you don't have to. I think one easy thing you can do is give a benefit stipend in the beginning until you're ready to like fully bring on insurance. But benefit stipend is a really nice thing to do as a small business owner. You may decide that you want to actually move into having a 401k, right? Or you might want to offer health benefits. Now, for me, when it comes to looking at like payroll benefits, planning, and things like that, I really like using a company called Gusto. So it's gusto.com. Really easy, like soup's easy, like just press the button, right? And you're like, oh, and they fill the information out. You don't have to worry about sending out 1099s. Like, it's super, super easy. And you can also integrate with benefits, like very easy into that program. And it scales up with you, which I really love. And then the other kind of small business 401k plan that I think is good to look into is Guideline, and Guideline kind of enters into Gusto as well. And then Gusto flows into QuickBooks, right? So operating systems. So, okay, let's circle this back to what not to do, right? What not to do is to not plan for all these things. Plan for them. That's what you should do. Don't do the not to do, which is don't plan. You should be planning for this, like super duper important. And then when it comes to things like when do you start health insurance or start those things, you can start those things for yourself. Sometimes we think as like a small business owner, we have to be left out to dry. But actually, guys, the point of having a business is that it makes money, you make money, and you can take care of yourself and have this kind of independent lifestyle. Not more free, because having your own business, I think, is more binding than not. So not for freedom, but more independence. And even looking at launching a 401k for your business, even if you are a business of one, is very important, because it'll help you with your own pre taxation it'll help you take money out of your paycheck without taxes. There we go. Got it out. That's what I would consider. Okay, JB, more good questions. What about equity sharing for key personnel? Maybe small percentage to attract great people. Be very careful about equity. Anyone who's smart knows that equity is like very risky. And so I wouldn't dangle that as yeah, you're going to get equity only if your P&L is strong and if your brand has a strong reputation, if you have a strong reputation. Otherwise, guys, anyone who has been following business knows that unless you are a SaaS company or you're in tech where there's strong chance of M&A and so a merger and acquisition or some sort of IPO, right? It's having equity doesn't really mean much. So when you're looking at what it means or the way of dangling equity, right? Oh yeah, you get equity. It's got to be, it has to be more meaningful than that, right? And you have to show a path. I would say a path to M&A, a path to an IPO. There's got to be some reason why equity should even matter, because otherwise, guys, equity doesn't mean shit. It's yeah, I have a piece of a company, but that company doesn't do anything. What's the point? Now, if the people you're hiring do not know about this, then sure, you can offer equity. That's totally fine. But remember, when does that equity get vested, right? What is the actual purpose and time period? And is it voting shares, non-voting shares? A lot to unpack there, JB. So I would say, save yourself the legal fees and don't go there. If anything, you could do rev shares, profit sharing for the business. That is good, right? So that means hey, I grow, you grow, right? We can profit share. But that's got to be a special person, right? It's got to be that's got to be something that is really, it's got to be something that's really good in terms of how your business is, how your business is forming. So JB, you say you come from tech, but great learning towards this industry. Yeah, absolutely. So technology, you can totally do that. Fashion, it's nah, unless you're a Stitch Fix or something like that. We got a question here on Instagram. Are markers used for sampling or just for production? Well, 00362217. I have no idea because I don't do production at all. So you are asking the wrong person. What I would tell you is, when it comes to production and sampling, there are lots of amazing people that are going to be on this channel that will be talking more about that. So I don't want to say something and totally shoot myself in my foot because I have no idea. It's funny. I often find that knowing what I'm very good at is helpful because then I also know what I'm not good at. Thank you for chiming in. So guys, it looks like you can use markers for both. So thank you. I've now learned something in production. Anyway, guys, to kind of wrap up our conversation today, kind of around what not to do when launching a brand, right? You don't want to misuse your resources. You really want to make sure that it is very important that you guys are capacity building and understanding who you need and when. So do not rush to make hires. Do not just hire cheap people. Make sure you understand when you need the technician, the manager, and the visionary. You may not be the visionary for a certain department because you may not know enough. That's okay. You might have an overall brand vision. That's fine too. And the other things that are kind of not to do. Don't be afraid of the things you don't know. Oftentimes I see people getting really scared with Microsoft Excel, which is an amazing tool, right? It's okay for you to go and take a class online to figure out how to use it properly. Do not be afraid to dip your toes into things that are actually going to help you build skill sets that are going to help you become a better entrepreneur over time. Those of you guys who've been following me for a while, right? The thing that's super important that I always say is, your first business is usually not your last business. So you want to be asking yourself at the end of this experience of launching or having this business, what are the things that I would like to kind of capacity build for myself, right? How do I want to learn how to be a better leader, how to understand finances better, right? Really outline what you want, because if you do not know what you want to get out of this experience, you will not know how to direct your time and energy, and you will spiral. And most people I get on the phone with are just spiraling. They're like, oh my God, this thing, that thing, and sometimes it's like, actually don't do it, or hire someone else. Or if you don't have the resources, you might need to do some fundraising or take out a loan. Low interest rates right now, guys, ding, ding, ding. Lots of different ways of kind of getting around this. All right, I'm going to answer this question here. If you guys have other questions, pop them in, but I am running low on my time. When scaling, would you say to focus more on expense management or profit margins? Ooh, that's a great question. I like that question. Okay. So when you're looking at the growth of a business, right? So the growth, so what constitutes, it's kind of clearer. Let's get our definitions down. Like, what constitutes a growing business? Well, in my mind, a growing business has steady, consistent revenue, number one, which means that you understand your product market fit. So like, you already know that you have something in the market and you're seeing traction, right? So a scaling opportunity would be something's working really well, right? How am I going to grow it? Chances are, when it comes to growing your business, you're going to have an inflection point of where you're going to have to invest more money and to see it grow, right? So it's like maybe you've been reinvesting. To scale something requires that you have leverage. So either you're going to decrease costs in certain areas because now you're able to, so let's say cost of goods is a great example. I'm going to increase my inventory and start to expand on my capacity for selling with my inventory. And by doing so, I decrease costs. So that's like low hanging fruit, right? Or what you're looking at is I'm going to increase my investments in marketing or sales, right, in order to be able to hit other or different distribution points. So when you're looking at scaling, it's usually heavily associated with spending more money, right? So managing expenses should be more like managing ROIs is more how I would look at it. Profit margins, depending on at what level, like when you're just starting to reinvest and you're like putting in more money, right? Your profit margin or your P&L, those first few months of like ramping up is going to be thinner, right? Than once it's actually at scale, right? And then all of a sudden at scale, what you're looking at is obviously having a much fatter profit margin, because the things that you've been able to do have been able to have you have diminishing costs, right? So cost of goods go down, right? The output, so your personnel, like the level of people on your team, they are better, stronger. They might be more expensive, but the volume of business associated with those new hires is substantially higher because of how they're able to maximize and make impacts into your business. So long story short, beginning stages of scaling, tight, right? You're like, unless you have like, either way, it's tight. It's like, I was going to say, well, it depends if you're scaling with your own profit from the business or you're scaling from outside investments. Either way, it's tight because wherever you're investing into, it's going to be a sticking point because you've been operating like this, you're going to have more money, but you're also probably going to spend a lot more. What I would say is the most important thing, guys, is to understand risk mitigation and set up benchmarks, right? So I'm going to spend X amount of money to understand, right, if this is worth it or if this test is working. At this level, I'm now going to put in more money. This next level, I'm going to put in more money, right? It's not like I want to go from here to here. I'm going to sign up for the whole enchilada, right? I'd rather you lose $5,000 than lose $25,000, right? How will you know if it's 25 or 5? It depends on your risk mitigation strategy and how you're looking at investing your money. I hope that made sense. But it's really about these checks and balances, right? And kind of understanding at what levels you are investing and moving forward. And that I think is really just like the best way that you can be thinking about business in general, right? Whether it's who you're hiring, like if you hire someone, you have a 30, 60, 90-day trial period. Risk mitigation. Yes, JB, I can do a session about risk mitigation strategy. It might be kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I'll see the feedback if other people are interested. I feel like it's super specific and I don't know if everyone's as excited about it as we are, but hopefully. So if you guys are excited about risk mitigation, would you please, kind of put in, either in a DM or some communication, let me know that this is something you guys want to talk about more. It's super nerdy and I really like it, but not everyone loves this topic. So JB, I'll see if I can hook you up. You got to rally the troops, get everyone excited about this. Okay, so Thrillist, yep, got it. Expenses increase initially, so we should focus best on our ROI. Or ROAS mainly. Yes, so different. So what you're talking about here when it comes to ROAS, right? Return on advertising spend. Advertising is very different, guys. So advertising is like, you won't put more money in advertising unless it's working, right? There's a baseline to play and then incremental. Incremental only comes in when you have a baseline, right? Oh, awesome. Everyone's into this idea. Okay, cool. So next one we're going to do risk mitigation. Tell your friends, okay? It may not sound sexy, but it's sexy to us. Yeah, so ROAS is different, right? ROAS is like advertising. I'm talking about like operations, right? Like your P&L when you scale shifts and it can be scary. I was telling someone earlier today, I was like, you think it's scary to like launch your business and get traction? It's even scarier when you have money coming in and you're responsible for spending it. Because up until that point, your risk reward was so low, right? You're like, well, I'm just going to try. Now you're like, oh shit, this is working. Oh my God, I have money. Like, what the hell do I do with it? I might lose it all, right? How do I spend this properly? So you might be struggling with like getting there, but trust me, like, once you're there, the next level, the scaling level is terrifying. Not to scare you, but kind of to scare you because it's kind of scary. Imagine having a budget of $500,000 that you have to invest. Like, what the hell are you going to do? So you stress out so much about getting there, but guys, like once you get there, there's a whole other roller coaster. All right, guys, that is all for me. I've got these one-on-ones coming up, like these little small group things. Super dope. Really enjoy them. Everyone has a lot of fun. Join me on this one or others. And we can talk about all sorts of, really exciting and fun things about retail. And based on your guys' feedback, it sounds like risk mitigation is something we should consider. So thanks, JB. Really great engaging with you. And guys, I will talk to you later. Bye.